What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me, where today we're going to create this lava lamp design. Now there's a link in the description down below to the palette and the canvas size, along with anything else that you require for today's tutorial. So have some fun with it and be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram when you're done. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas and you've got all the requirements that are in the description of the video that include the lava stamp brush, we're going to go ahead and go to our color palette, and we're going to go ahead and grab this second color on the top row. This is going to be the color of the actual lamp itself in the background. So once we select that one, we're going to go to our layer, and of course we'll have an empty layer to start with. We're then going to go to our brush library, and you're going to need to find the lava lamp stamp. Now it's most likely at the very bottom in imported, because this is where singular brushes go, and if you had a collection of brushes they would go up towards the top. So you'll just need to grab the lava stamp that we've got here, and then you're going to want to max out the size to 100%. What you then want to do is tap in the middle of the screen, then grab your cursor and position that in the center using the snapping option, so you get the two orange lines there. If you go to snapping and turn on snapping, you'll see the lines then appear on your screen. So just make sure you hit those orange lines, and that'll let you know your stamp is nice and centered. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. What you then need to do is just go up to your layers and create a new layer. Then go ahead and tap on the stamp layer, tap on it and use the option of select. So what we're doing here is we're selecting the shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and invert the selection. So now we've selected everything around the outside. You do need to make sure color fill is turned off, so just bear that in mind. I'm then going to go to my colors. I'm going to grab this color here in the top left of the palette, then go back to my layers, go back up to the top empty layer, tap on the layer and use the option of fill. Now what that will have done is that will have filled in everything but the actual lamp itself. So we filled in everything around the outside. Now what you can actually do at this point is if we go up to our colors and go ahead and grab the second color on the top row, and then go back down to the stamp that you originally created, tap on that layer and use the option of fill. So that will get rid of that very slight white outline, because we only need that as a background color. This layer here at the top that's now got the stamp cut out in the center is going to act as a cookie cutter shape and make sure everything looks nice and tidy hidden underneath it. So this is going to stay right at the top of our layers. Now the next step is of course to define which areas are part of the glass and the actual lava lamp area, and which ones are part of just the body of the object. So we're going to go down a layer to the filled in maroon type color and create a new layer. We're going to go to our colors and we're going to grab this color here on the right. So it's the fourth color actually on that top row, but the fifth column at the top. And then we're going to go to our layers. And this layer here, we actually want it to be nice and symmetrical. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our actions. We're going to go to the option under canvas of drawing guide and turn that on. And then you'll just need to edit your drawing guide and come across to the fourth option here of symmetry. And then you can see that there'll be a line running down the center of your screen. You can change the color of the line at the top. You can also change the opacity and the thickness so that you can see it on the screen, but it's not necessary to see it as such. It's just going to be used now when we hit the done option, that if we draw on one side, it's going to reflect it perfectly on the other. So then what we need to do is go up to our brush and we need to switch it for the correct one. Now we're going to go to calligraphy and we're going to use the monoline brush. Now your brush size doesn't necessarily matter, but mine is set to 12% as a reference for you. And we're going to start roughly here. We're going to create an arc that goes across the screen like so. Hold your pen down so you get a nice smooth arc, and then just adjust the angle until you're happy with it. So something rough like that looks pretty good to me. Then what we need to do is just go from this point, go all the way around and draw onto the other point. What we're doing there is we're creating a perfect loop that you can't really see, but when we drag and drop the color in, you can see it fills in that area here. We then need to go ahead and do the same at the top of the lamp. So again, we're going to create a nice arc that runs across side to side, and hold your pen down. And then from either end, go from one end all the way around to the other end so that you can drag and drop your color in. And then you've gone and now isolated the area in the center that's going to be used as the actual lava lamp area. Now, while we are actually working on this particular part of the shape, we're going to go ahead and go to our brush library. We're going to switch our brush out to airbrushing, and we're going to use the soft brush. And you'll notice my opacity is currently set to about 77%. And the brush size, I think, should be roughly around about sort of 3 or 4%. We then need to go to our colors and grab this tone here. So it's the fourth column on our palette at the top there. Now, one thing we do need to bear in mind is we need to go up to our layers and we need to tap on the layer we need to turn off the drawing assist, and we need to tap on the layer and alpha lock it. So now it's not going to reflect on either side, and we can only paint within the boundaries here. So for example, if I start to draw in a straight line there from the middle down, you can only see it within the area of the shape we're trying to color in. So we're going to go ahead and on this left hand side, just outside the shape, just bring in a highlight that goes down to just here. So we're just going to paint that in on this side here, nice and close to the edge. From the bottom, I'm going to reduce the brush size down to about 3%, and I'm going to come up the side again, just to that middle point, and then just start to arc it around here. Now this will start to give the impression that the two pieces meet here, and then there's a little gap that just where the two meet. So we're just coming across, we're coming down here, and then we're going up from the bottom and across. And that will just, again, just put like a little ledge in there and just give the illusion that there's just a little meat there between the pieces of plastic. And then on the right side, we're going to make our shadows more in the center point. So we're going to come off the edge and we're going to just run in a highlight here and then just blend that out towards the left hand side. So this is really subtle at this point, and you can tell because of the lower opacity. And then we're just going to do the same down here as well. So following the curvature of the bottom of the lamp, just creating some little highlights there, and just again just push that out to the left hand side to follow with that little ledge. And then you should end up with something a little bit like this. Then what we'll do is we'll go up to the top and repeat the same rules. So on the left hand side, we're going to start outside the object and just paint in a little highlight. But on this edge here, we're going to come off the edge and just run sort of a straight line down like so. And that's all we need to do for this. If we zoom out, you've got some highlights there ready to go for later on. So now here comes the fun stuff. We can now start to work on the blobs as such in the center of the actual lava lamp. So we're going to go up to our layers and we're going to tap on this background layer here and create 3 new layers. We need 3 different layers for the different levels of depth. So we're going to create 3 new layers. You'll have the top one selected out of the 3, but then on the other 2, swipe from left to right, and you'll have selected those as well. And then group them together. We're then going to go to our colors, and you'll find this middle row is actually the colors we need for the actual blob. So we're going to grab the middle color here. We're then going to go to our brush library, and we're going to switch it back to calligraphy and the monoline brush. And my brush size is currently set to 12%. So the first blob I want to introduce is going to be just down here. So we're just going to introduce a blob with a nice rounded look to it, and then go outside the shape and go all the way around to your start point so that you can drag and drop your color in, and then that will fill in that space. The next blob is then to create one here in sort of the middle ground area. So I'm just going to create a nice rounded little object here. Something a little bit like this. Make sure your lines run nicely and smoothly into each other, and drag and drop the color in. And then the final blob I want to introduce is up here. So we're just going to create another rounded shape up here and let your lines run back into each other nice and smooth, and drag and drop your color in. Now that's the first layer of our blobs. We're then going to go to our layers. We're going to go down a layer and just add in some middle ground points. Now the only middle ground as such is actually going to be literally here in the middle. So we're going to create another blob that just sits in behind here. So just creating a nice rounded object again, and just let your lines run nicely into each other, and then drag and drop the color in. That's the only one we want in that space. We're then going to go to our layers again and go down to the final empty layer in this group. And this is going to be our background. So this will create some nice depth between the 3 different layers. Now again, I want to create one from the bottom, so I'm going to create another little blob from that bottom area and go all the way around. And because it sits in the background now, of course, you're going to start to see it sort of sit in behind. And then we've done exactly the same thing. I've started here, gone all the way around, created a blob, and then dragged right to the start point so that I can drag and drop my color in. And then from the top, this is our final blob. It's going to be pretty much the width of the top area here, just with a little droop here on this side, and go all the way around, and then drag and drop your color in. And then you've got all your blobs ready to go. Now the next step is super fun because we now get to color them in. So let's go to our layers. Let's work at the top so we can see the blobs, and then we know what rules to apply. We're going to tap on the first layer in this group, tap on it and use the option of alpha lock. So now we can only paint within the boundaries of them. If it's easier for you, turn off the other 2 layers underneath, and then you'll be able to perfectly see the shapes that you've created. I'll do that just so we can all see what we're looking at. We're then going to go to our colors. We're going to grab the darker tone first out of these three, so this red tone, so the third column in the middle row. Then go to your brush library, go to airbrushing and the soft brush. You can make your opacity back up to 100%, and I'm going to make my brush size roughly around about 4%. Now what we want to do is, per blob, we want to darken up the top area of it in just a dark sort of circular space. So example here, in a circular motion, just darken this up, not come too far down, but just darken up that top area like so. And that's all you need to do. We'll do the same over here. So we'll just create a nice sort of darker area towards the top, blend it out a little bit towards the bottom with the soft airbrush. And that's all you need to do there. And then again, repeat up here, super nice and easy, just a nice dark spot towards the top area. And then while we're working on this one, we'll go ahead and add in the yellow tones. So let's go to our colors. Let's grab the yellow, the first color in the second row. And then we're going to introduce this towards the bottom, of course. So this is now going to sort of work towards the bottom area. So I'm going to come across the bottom like so, going backwards and forwards, starting to really blend it up. Pressure's nice and soft. Just a little bit like this. We can then maybe start to introduce it just around the edges, just a little bit, and blend that up. And then just go around the very edge towards the top. We're then going to do the same on this blob, of course. So around the bottom area like so, blending that out, and go around the edge just a tiny bit like so. And then this top one, if you've got two shapes that are very close together, just simply go to your selection tool, use the freehand option and make sure color fill is turned off, and then just go around the shape and tap on the dot. Now when I go back to my brush, I can only paint within this selection, so I don't need to worry about this shape. If I draw here, nothing will happen, but I can nicely now color in this bottom area of this blob, bring a little bit of yellow up that edge, just blend this round, and that is my third blob done on this layer. Tap on my selection tool when I'm done. Now the only extra step to do here is to go up to our layers and create one new layer, tap on that layer and clip it, and then go ahead and change the layer option from normal to add. Now what we're going to do is add in some really nice bright highlights on the bottom area, especially on all the blobs. So same color, same brush, but now when you paint in, it's going to go really bright. So just bear that in mind, and then you may need to just bring that around the edges just a little bit, but again, blend that out towards the bottom. Again, up here, I'm just going to go around this edge here, just creating a nice crisp edge, and then add in a nice bright spot towards the bottom and push that out like so. So that's a really good example of what we want to do. Nice, beautiful, bright edge on the side there, nice, bright bottom area there, and that's it. You can let the other colors just sit as they are. And then again, let's do the same up here. Let's do another selection so we don't draw into that space. Let's go to our selection tool and just, again, brighten up that bottom edge. A little bit that wraps around on the sides looks pretty good. And then let's just bring that up and around like so. Now that's probably a bit too high, so I'll just settle with that. And just blend that out just a little bit more at the bottom. And that is your first lot of blobs done. Now for a minute they look really bright, but once we start adding all the lighting in, it's going to look really cool. So now you've done that, we can then go back to our layers and we repeat the process for the middle points and of course then the far points. So we'll turn off the top layer that we were just working on, so turn that off. And then I'm going to turn on the middle blob, so you can see that it's just one on its own. So I'm going to tap on the layer and alpha lock it. Then I'm going to go back to my colors and grab the red, so this third color in the second row, and repeat the same step. The only thing we need to do here is at this top area, just darken up this area up here. So really punch out the color towards the top, and you can let that just nicely blend out towards the bottom. So really soft with your pressure, just let that blend down. Then go to your colors and grab the yellow in that second row, the first color, and then again, let's go around the bottom area here, bring it in some nice yellow tones, wrap it around the side a little bit, and blend that out. Blend that into the orange, so now you have that dark red into the orange, into the yellow. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and go to our layers. We're going to create a new layer, tap on the layer and clip it to that blob, and tap on the N for normal and change that to add. Same brush, same color, except now when we paint on, it's going to be nice and bright. So we just want to create a nice crisp edge. Look at that, right around the outside there. You can see how far I'm drawing outside the actual shape. So I'm starting way outside of it and then just just bringing the brush as close to it as I can without sort of drawing too much into it. And if you need to do that as well, just simply go up to your actions. And if you go to preferences and turn on brush cursor, you'll see the circle just like I do around my pen there, and you can then follow along in the exact same fashion. The only thing I might do here is just bring in a little bit of highlight in here just to make this blob not look quite so rounded and have a little bit of a softer side over here, and then maybe a slight softer side over there too. Just a little something on either side there. Let's then go ahead and go to our layers and work on the background blobs. So let's turn off the one we were just working on and go down to the bottom ones in the group, turn on the layer, and of course repeat. So tap on the layer and alpha lock it. Then go to your colors and of course grab the red tone. So it's the third color in that second row. Now I've got quite a big blob down here, so I'm going to increase my brush size up to maybe sort of 5 or 6% and just darken up again that top area like so. Circular motion tends to work really well, and blend that down towards the bottom. A little bit of red up there, and of course we'll do the same at the top, so just more so towards the center, just a little bit of red there, a little bit of something like that. Let's then go to our colors and switch it out to the yellow, so the first color in the second column, and of course repeat the same steps. So just round the bottom area, add in some yellow, pushing that round the sides a little bit, and pushing it up and around this side too, and blend that into the orange. At the top we'll of course do the same, so let's go around the bottom edge, introducing some yellow. Circular motion, we can blend that out nicely, push that round like so. Then we're going to go to our layers and repeat the final step, which is create a new layer. Tap on the layer and clipping mask it, and change the layer effect from normal to add, and then same color, same brush, start to introduce the brighter tones. So I'm going to go again, just introduce some bright tone on the edge here, just a little bit like that. Push that around the bottom, and then on this side here I'm just going to really introduce some nice bright yellow in there. Start to push that in a little bit from the side, and then at the top we go round the bottom area again, just like this, introducing some bright yellow tones, and then just push that out on the sides like so. And then maybe you could just introduce a little slightly lighter spot again just on this particular blob. And now when we go back to our layers, go ahead and turn on your other blobs. So it'll be the layers that you turned off won't have a checkbox, so check those back on, and look at that, you've got all the blobs of your lava lamp. But what we can do is at this stage we're going to go to our layers, and we put them in a group on purpose, because what we're going to do is we're going to collapse the group down by clicking on this little arrow here. We're then going to swipe the group to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out of the two, so important you tap on the bottom one, tap on the option of flatten, and then tap on the layer and turn off the alpha lock, because that will turn on. What you then need to do is you change the layer effect from normal and change it to add, and then go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right until you start to see that glow come in. Now we don't want it to be too big necessarily, so we're going to go to 8% here. So swipe from left to right until you see 8% at the top, and tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now they have a much brighter glow to them, of course. It's now really going to resemble that bright tone. The next step is to now start adding some different elements to the actual glass, which ties it all together nicely. So the next step to do is actually go up to our layers. We're going to create a new layer, and we're going to drag it underneath the glows that we just had there. So it's going to be the lowest color apart from the solid color that we put in the background. We're then going to go to our colors, and we're going to go ahead and grab this middle tone again in the middle of the second row, and then reduce our brush size down to something a bit smaller, maybe about 3%. And the only thing we want to do is just follow this curvature here. Imagine it flip the other way. We just want to sort of round off these corners here, so we're creating like the rounded base of the light source at the bottom, so just a little bit rounder like that. So my blob here moves quite far to the right, so you can't really see too much of it there, but you can get a great example there on the left. Now it looks like there's sort of a dish here at the bottom. The next step now is to add in some little speckles in here, which are nice extra details which really take this to another level. So we're going to go up to our layers, and then just above your group we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to continue with the same color, but we're going to go to our brush library, and we're going to use the medium blend brush here. which is in the airbrushing section, which should be the last section you were in. So under airbrushing, the medium blend. Now we need this to be nice and small. So the size I've currently got is 1%. There's actually different values of 1%. You can see there if I drag it up and down, there's different values until I hit 2%. So currently I'm at like a large 1%. And all I'm going to do is just tap on the screen just to add in some blobs. So you may need to vary your pressure up and down. The lighter you press, you'll get some nice soft ones like this. And the harder you press, you'll get some nice bright ones like that. And you do want to have that nice variation. So we're just going to draw in some dots that just sit above and below our blobs. So just pop them in the gaps. Different pressures. Some can be nice and faint. Some can be nice and bright. Vary them up. Really go for it and change up the colors and the solidness of the shape. So I'm just dotting around. And then I'm going to reduce the brush size down to an even smaller 1% and just tap in here. So just making sure to tap, not to drag. That last one I dragged. So I'm just tapping away in here, adding in some nice little details. And again, some of them can be nice and soft. You might not even see too many of them. But just adding in some nice blobs in here. Bubbles. Nice little bubbles in here. And again, just tapping away. I can then go maybe up to 2%. See how that goes. Just some nice soft ones. Don't want to add too many big bright ones. So just some nice soft ones in the background, which look really cool. It's just nice little extra bits of detail. Quite a nice little particle effect. So not too many, but not too little. We do want it to have a fair few in here. And then I think something like that should be good enough that we can move on. Let's just dot a couple more here in front, like so. And I'm happy with that as it is. So I'm going to leave them like they are. Now we're going to go ahead and do the glass on top. So let's go to our layers and create a new layer. And just because this is a lighting style tutorial, you're going to see me use the add effect yet again. So we're going to tap on the N for normal and change it to add. We're going to go to our brush library. And we're going to switch the brush out to the soft brush at the top of airbrushing. We're then going to go to our colors and we're going to use this collection of colors at the bottom. Now we're going to use this light orange here, the first one first of all, and this has a particular role. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our brush outside of the glass here and just start to push that in from the edge, just going up to the curve here. So where this starts to curve, I'm going here, you can see that, and then just start to push it across the bottom edge here. So once you start to nicely sort of illustrate the edge of the glass, just push that round towards the side and then repeat that on this side as well. So we're going to just, where this starts to round, just start to bring in a little highlight. That's the first thing you need to do, and then just sort of build on it. So just bring it in more and more and push it around the bottom edge until you end up with two nice little highlights here at the bottom, just like that. We're then going to go to our colors. We're going to grab the second color on the bottom row. Now this one is going to be used to edge the actual full side of the glass. So we're going to go ahead and start outside the glass and just draw in a nice little bit of color that's just going to edge the glass in a little bit. So you may need to go ahead and draw a straight line, for example. Hold your pen down and then you can just adjust this line, you see, and then you can just point that down into that corner if that makes life easier for you. And then let's do the same on this side as well. So just bringing that in on that left side, like so. And the harder you press, you will get a quite bright tone. So the more you go over yourself, you will get a more brighter edge on the side there. And now the next step is to be super gentle. So you may need to lower your opacity down. I'm going to make my brush size a bit bigger. I'm going to go to about sort of 4 or 5%. Let's make that about 5%. And then leaving a gap between this red here that we drew, the background color, and then this space here, we're going to sort of mimic this line again. So we're just going to draw in a nice little bit of red and just follow the curve a little bit. So just a little bit something like this. So you can see you've got the brighter edge. There's like a darker strip here that just has a gap in between it. And then we'll do the same on the opposite side. So we just bring in a nice little bit of red, very light pressure at this point, but just leaving a gap on that side there. We're then going to go ahead and go to our colors, and let's switch it out for the third color on that bottom row. So this one here, this is going to be used for the corners towards the top here. So I'm going to go ahead. So what I'm going to do is kind of replicate this, but up here. So I'm just going to just sort of color in this corner and just let the yellow just push down a little bit. So I'm just going over these bright tones at the top and then pushing it down ever so slightly. So a nice bright yellow in the corners. Next, what we're going to do is go to our colors, and we've got one final color, which is this one here, the fourth, which is kind of a pink tone or light orange otherwise. We're going to go ahead and make our brush size about 4 or 3%. And we're just going to add in some highlights. Now these highlights we added at the top represent what you need to do. So we mentioned earlier at the very point here on the cap, we had a little highlight on the left edge, and then also this solid line here that was off the side, and it was more so here. We're going to literally just follow that line down, draw that in until it gets to the curve, and just let that go like that. So you introduce a nice highlight tone on this side. And then all we're going to do down here is very lightly just sort of bring in a little flick on this left hand side. And then the final step is to go up to our adjustments. We're going to go to motion blur, and we're just going to drag it from left to right ever so slightly. So we're just going to drag it from left to right, and that'll just blend your tones in a bit better. So I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to go up to roughly around about sort of 15% here, and then let go. So I've dragged it from the center to the right hand side, which is then pushed our little bits of highlights here now sideways, but inwards and outwards, which will just bringing it in from the side a little bit, and also just feather out your highlights a little bit more. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now look how cool that looks. Our lamp has now completely changed. We've got beautiful lighting in here. We've got a nice edge highlight on the side here, little crisp look on the glass at the bottom, and all these nice little particles on the inside which look fantastic. And we've got these nice bright edges towards the bottom which really show off that light source in the base. What we're then going to do is just add in a little bit of color in the background. So we're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go to our layers. We're going to go right to the top, and we need to create a new layer and clip it to this layer here. So we can only now add a highlight around the outside edge. We're then going to go to our colors, and we're going to grab the middle tone here on the second row. And we're going to go back to our layer, tap on the layer, and use the drawing assist. Now we can make sure our glow is even on either side. And we're going to continue with our soft airbrush, but we're going to make it a bit bigger, about 10% this time. And pretty much from this corner, you're going to follow this line up to this corner. So just bringing in a little bit of color like so. You're going to introduce a bit of a glow towards the background. And then you just want to do that maximum twice, and then very lightly a lighter coat on the outside edge, which will just sort of feather that out a little bit more. If you're worried that you've gone a bit too bright, that's no problem. You can always go up to your adjustments and go to Gaussian blur and swipe from left to right, and that'll just really feather that out a little bit more. So just like a 20% blur there, and tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now there's one extra step we can do. We can go up to our layers and create a new layer. Let's tap on that layer and clipping mask it also. So now we're just working on the outside edge up here. We're going to go to our colors and just double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. Go back to your layer, tap on the layer, and also make sure it's drawing assisted. And reduce your soft airbrush down to say 4%. We're just going to add a little shadow here underneath the bottom edge here. So just a little shadow, and push it side to side a little bit so it can nicely stretch across. So a little something like that. It's very, very subtle. You might not be able to see it too well on my screen, for example. There's a very subtle bit of color there. And just to really diffuse it, go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right, and just add in a little bit something, maybe sort of 12%. And maybe then even go back to your adjustments one more time, motion blur, and push it from left to right or right to left, either. And that will just, again, just diffuse it. So I'm just adding in a 50% motion blur there, pushing it to the sides, and then tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then if I go ahead and make sure mine's positioned in the center, and we go full screen with 4 fingers, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. As always, if you enjoyed it, please drop a like down below. Helps the channel out an awful lot. And if you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so hit that subscribe button. As always, a massive shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. I'll throw their names up on the screen now. Patreon supporters get access to exclusive tutorials every single month, as well as sneak peeks, early access, and much, much more. So hit the link in the description down below and come and show your support. And as always, if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro that you can use code JoelCreate to get yourself 10% off, or a Paperlike screen cover that I use, or the Pen Tips grip and glove, there's links to all my equipment in the description. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.